Trojans, welcome to the LBC Trojan channel with USC and Notre Dame week. We have the USC preview today, game of legends and names, and there's no name bigger in this USC Notre Dame rivalry than the McKay name. Join us for some stories maybe you've heard before and ones that'll be new on the next episode of Trojans Talk on Tap.
Go Trojans go, LBC pouring Cardinal and gold. The next man up is the next Heisman. Only bleed USC, yes we've been built to win. Catch roses while we ball all across the map. Too strong, fight on as Trojan Talk on Tap.
So very happy to have join us here on Trojans Talk on Tap, the first family, in my opinion, of USC football, Mr. J.K. McKay and his son, Jeff McKay. Obviously, J.K., the son of former coach John McKay, and Jeff, the grandson of John McKay. Gentlemen, welcome to Trojans Talk on Tap. So very glad that you can spend some time with us. The most important week of the year, USC Notre Dame week.
Right on, well, thanks for having us. This is an exciting week.
Yeah, this is an exciting week. A lot of great stories about Notre Dame and USC. Legendary, where players are remembered, legends are made. We have combined 22 national championships, the most NFL first-round draft picks, Hall of Famers, college Hall of Famers. The list goes on and on. Legendary games. And we're going to get into your viewpoints, your thoughts on this year's matchup between the number 9 ranked Trojans and the number 21 ranked Fighting Irish as the Trojans roll into South Bend. But first, we want to take the Trojans back, our viewers, and tell some stories about some of the previous games that happened in the early 70s that you played in, JK. And let's first start off with each of you. Give me what your impression is of this USC Notre Dame rivalry. What is it about? Let's start off with you, JK.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been an important part of my life since I was a little kid. My dad grew up as a coal miner's son in West Virginia. He was a big Notre Dame fan. So he was always a Notre Dame fan. Even when he's coaching at SC, we always, in my family, and this wasn't the case with all teams, but we rooted for Notre Dame. We wanted to play them when they were undefeated. That was kind of our goal every year. So if they're playing somebody else, I want them to win because we got to play them anyway. You know, might as well get credit for beating them. So he loved Notre Dame. When I came out of high school, I went to I was getting recruited all over the place, and actually went to Notre Dame and got recruited. And I'll never forget Era Parsegian, who was a friend of my dad's back then when coaches could be friends with each other. And Era, I remember what Coach Parsegian said to me when he called me in. He said, JK, he said, I think you're going to USC, but if you don't, I want you to come to Notre Dame. And I said to Coach Parsegian, I said, Coach, if this is the one place my dad would let me go, because I mean, my dad had a high opinion of Notre Dame. He loved the rivalry, loved to beat him, but had a real good relationship with Notre Dame.
Jeff, what are some of your thoughts on the USC Notre Dame rivalry? Obviously growing up in the McKay family.
I would say, part of my childhood as well. I can remember we started going back, every other year to Chicago and then South Bend, starting when I was, like 8 or 9, 10 years old. So a lot of, amazing memories. It's, in my opinion, it's the best rivalry in college football. And kind of like my dad was saying, like, I think there's definitely a mutual respect where I find myself kind of rooting for Notre Dame when we're not playing them, where maybe UCLA, I'm kind of rooting for them to lose every game. Like Notre Dame, there's this respect, and that campus, you go back there, it's incredible. And then, you get to the game and you can see the hatred on the field and you get really excited. But, overall, I think there's definitely no other rivalry like it.
Yeah. And yesterday I had the pleasure of interviewing a gentleman by the name of Pat Poland. He was a former offensive lineman on the 1973 Notre Dame Fighting Irish national championship team. He's actually going back to South Bend. They're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of that team at this game. And I asked him, being an independent, who is Notre Dame's biggest rivalry? Without a doubt, he said USC. So there's a mutual respect between the two schools. I think you pointed out perfectly, JK. You want them to be undefeated when USC plays them. So,
Yep.
and Notre Dame feels the same exact way. In fact, Pat Pullen shared a story with me. He mentioned to run this by you. He's a year younger than you. He played his prep ball at Downey's Pius X. And he still remembers to this day, as a sophomore, losing 80-9.
80-9. I remember the game.
Okay, Bishop Amat, Pat Haden.
I felt guilty. I caught a late touchdown pass to make it 80.
Like he has those scars, let me tell you. So
I will tell you this. I will tell you this on with Pat Pullen, the 73 team.
Yeah.
I played. I was the last. My class was the last class that was not eligible as freshmen to play on the varsity. So we played Notre Dame 3 times when I was at SC. 72, 73, and 74. We won 2 of them, 72 and 74. They won the middle one. All 3 years, the winner of the game won the national championship.
Absolutely.
Which is the way it ought to be. I love that. I think it's great.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And that's amazing that you would remember that story. But you just said it so perfectly. It's amazing because he shared with me that the previous year in 72, they lost, I believe it was the Orange Bowl to Nebraska, 40-6. And when they came into fall camp, it was just brutal, he said. And so they were driven. And, they had something to prove. And after beating SC in South Bend 23-14, they had the opportunity to play an undefeated Bear Bryant in Alabama in the South in one of the biggest games.
And they won by a point.
Exactly. And actually, he diagrammed that play, but phenomenal. But that's why legends were made. Is you win national championships. What USC and Notre Dame did in the 70s is just unbelievable. And there are Trojans that are out there that remember this, and there's Trojans that are so young that really don't. So we are really thankful to have you here. Jeff, you've been on our show before back in May. You and Murr Hernandez are principals of Conquest Collective. So this is what the Trojan family is all about. You hear about it, but you made a phone call to your dad. And JK, I'm glad that you were able to come on today with me and Tony to share some stories and some legends about those games. Let's go to the 72 season, the perfect season. You start off.
Best team ever.
What's that, Tony?
Best team ever.
Best team ever, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the argument. I don't know how you could say anybody was better. We didn't have a close game.
Yeah. In fact, the closest game was 9 points, and that was to Stanford. And
they scored on the last play of the game to cut it to 9.
Okay, there you go. I was just going to ask you, your dad had some great stories, maybe some animosity towards Stanford. Was it the coach?
Well, the interesting you say, like I told you, my dad loved Notre Dame. He was always a Notre Dame fan as a kid, so he's always had high praise. He had the coaches at UCLA back then were good friends of his. They would come over to our house.
Yes,
the world was a little bit different back then, but he did not have a good relationship with Stanford and its coach for a couple of reasons that I won't go into that have to do with. Anyway, I just don't want to go there. But he had some animosity towards Stanford.
It's okay. We all have some animosity towards Stanford.
You can't. Everyone
That's
has.
true.
You mentioned stories, and I want you to confirm, is it fact or fiction? I'm going to tell you something that was told to me by a friend of mine that I went to USC with. He's a graduate. And he was at a USC function. And my friend grew up in La Puente, went to high school in La Puente at Bassett High School. And I guess he was talking with Pat Haden. And when it came out that my friend Randall went to Bassett, and La Puente, he said to my friend Randall, "Did you know that Bear Bryant visited La Puente one day?" And my friend Randall goes, "No way." And he said, back then, Pat Haden was living with your family.
Yep.
And so he came out to recruit Pat Haden. But he didn't know that Pat Haden was living with your family. He remembers he knocked on the door, and your father, John McKay, opened the door and said to Bear, "Hey, Bear, you want to meet my boy, Pat Haden? Come on in." And Bear gave him a look like, USOB, like you got me.
No, that's mostly true.
Okay.
Bear and my dad were good friends.
Okay.
So I think Bear might have known that Pat was living at my dad's house, but he did come over to recruit Pat and me. I flew back to Alabama too, and we went to looked around because Bear basically, he was. But he and my dad were. I don't know if they were best friends, but they were close. They hung out. Bear used to stay at our house every off season for weeks at a time. He and his wife.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now,
I have a question for you about Oregon.
Go ahead.
So I've done a lot of history research on the creation of the Pac-12 in 1959, and when the Pacific Coast Conference was falling apart, they threw Oregon to the curb. And I've read what the animosity they had towards Oregon, which when your dad, who at the time was Oregon's all-time leading rusher, took over as USC's coach, all of a sudden they pushed through to forgive all of the shenanigans that Oregon had pulled in the 50s. And I personally believe that if your dad had not been the USC coach, Oregon today would probably be in the Mountain West, because the UCLA and Cal and USC wanted nothing to do with Oregon coming out of the 50s.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, how did he always view Oregon, going back to the alma mater where he'd been a star?
He loved Oregon. I was born up in Eugene. He and my mom both went there. And then out of nowhere, I mean, what happens is one day I think I was 6 or 7 years old. He comes home one day and he goes, and literally he says, we're moving to Southern California like the next day or something. It's like, what? And we moved down there. He's an assistant coach 1 year. And I think if you look at the record, SC lost the last 2 games of that year. Don Clark was the coach, and against UCLA and Notre Dame. And then out of nowhere, my dad got the head job. And it was like, because I still have the paper. The LA Times said, McKay who? ?
It's okay. They've never liked this either. Don't.
And then he literally he wins, I think, 4 games 1 year and 5 games the next. He's almost going to get. We're talking about moving to Nebraska and my family, I remember. And then in 62, he goes 12-0 and we're off and running, So, but he loved, he went to school at Oregon. He had a great relationship with Len Casanova, the coach back then, and always spoke very highly of the place.
Oh, that's awesome.
Let's revisit that 72 game against Notre Dame at the Coliseum. And Anthony Davis went for 6 touchdowns. I believe it was a 97-yard return, a 96-yard return, and 4 running plays, 4 touchdowns of like 1, 2, 6, and 8 yards.
Yeah, most of those touchdowns were set up by catches by me, but just saying,
Yeah. So
no doubt.
No doubt.
So an electric player, and we have one on this year's team in Zachariah Branch that has the capability of being one of those generational players. Tell me what you saw in Anthony Davis and what you see, limited sample size with Zachariah Branch. But I mean, if there's anybody that can give a comparison, what do you think? And then also, Jeff, I'd like you to chime in because you've gotten to know AD and you've seen, the all the highlights. And what's your impression? Let's go with your dad and then get your take there, Jeff.
AD was just unique. He was. I knew him in high school. I got to know him a little bit in all-star games and stuff. And I think the difference between the two players, there's one difference, and that is actual speed. AD, as great a player he wasn't a sprinter. He was a great football player, and had one of the most amazing careers really in the history of USC football, which is saying something. And it's particularly against Notre Dame. I think I heard the other day he had like 11 touchdowns against Notre Dame or something like that. So he was amazing. And Zachariah sounds. I mean, I think he's got this unbelievable straight head speed. I love to see him play. So I hope he's available.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, AD obviously, like watching the highlights to my dad's point, like for someone his size, like he wasn't, a total burner, but for someone his size, just his ability to make people miss was incredible. In small spaces, and he could, cut back a million different directions before that was kind of the style. It's pretty incredible. And then with Zach Branch, it's just, it's ridiculous. Like watching his high school highlights, even I was like, this guy's moving at a different speed. So it's really exciting. And, Zach seems like he's a really good kid. He's a very hard worker, comes from, kind of a really solid football family. So I think he has, very high football IQ, and the athleticism. I don't even know who to compare him to, like Reggie Bush, or I don't know who. Tyreek Hill's probably the more accurate comparison, but yeah, he's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, Zachariah Branch to me is a combination of Dory Jackson and Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
But
that's a good combo. That's right. That's a pretty good combo too.
Yeah.
It's good to have.
I got a follow-up question, JK. You just said something that was really interesting, that Anthony Davis wasn't a burner. But there are certain players out there in every sport that have these intangibles that can't be measured. And what I mean by that, and I'd like to get your comment, and Jeff, yours as well, is there's some players that are just big game players, that they have this juice. When the stage is on, they hit another level. It's just adrenaline. It's their heart, their mindset, maybe their vision, a combination of everything, but they're ready to give their absolute best. And it makes up for maybe some deficiencies in other parts of their natural ability. What's your thought on what I just shared with you?
No, I think you're right on, and that's who AD was. I mean, because you look at him and go, he's about 5'9", 185 pounds. I don't know what he was, 190 pounds, 185 pounds. He probably ran 4'6", 4'6'5". But he could, he could play, and he loved the moment. He just loved the moment. And you even see him today. When he walks in a room, he owns the room. He's just that guy. And that's, good for him. Again, when you recruit a guy like that, you go like, well, he only runs 4'6". He doesn't, and he's not very big, and he's, but God, he could play. And he loved the moment.
Yeah. Jeff, any thoughts on that?
I can't add on to that. Being a former 2-star high school player, I didn't live in the moment, and I definitely didn't have any speed. So,
wait, you were a 2-star?
One and a half.
Where'd you get that extra star?
I rounded up.
Oh, there we go.
I rounded up.
It was a gold star. It was a gold star from mom.
A for effort. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of stars, let's move on to 74. And this is what really intrigues me. This game, and down 24-6 at halftime, and your dad being famous for quips and quotes and his personality, what do you recall being said in that locker room that turned it around? And,
I will say this: it was 24-6. We scored like with 4 seconds to go in the first half to get the 6, and then we missed the extra point. So he goes, but he was very positive. He's saying we're better than this, and he said something that I'll never forget. And John Robinson's been quoted on this, and one of the things on this game that he said right before we went out. He said the last thing he said to the team is he said we're gonna play better. We're gonna come back. He said, but we need somebody to do something. And he walked out of the room, and I was literally at the door. And I heard him say, this has not sure been reported anywhere, but he says, I heard him say, and maybe I should tell them there's no rule against blocking on kickoff returns. Because we were going to get the second half kickoff. And we did get the second half kickoff, and Anthony brought it all the way back. And, we scored 55 points in 17 minutes.
Yeah. When you combine the end,
I'm not sure that's ever been done against Notre Dame ever.
Yeah. And
best game ever.
And that was the last regular season game that Eric Parsegian ever coached at Notre Dame. Obviously, coached the bowl game, knocking off Bear Bryant, 13-11.
Giving us the national championship. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There you go. So there was also some other stars in that game. JK, third quarter, you caught 4 passes for a little over 100 yards and 2 TDs. So Talk about that.
Anthony got a lot of credit, but I got
Right.
a couple touchdowns, couple passes down inside the 5, and then two long touchdowns. Honestly, my last 2 games at SC were that one and then the Rose Bowl, so it couldn't have ended any better for me.
Do you think your dad was talking to you when he said we need somebody to step up? Or do you think every guy in that locker room heard what he was saying and wanted to be
I think
that
he meant
guy?
it. I think he said we need somebody to make a play. Somebody's
Yeah.
got let's get things going, and Anthony did. I mean, but it's interesting as he walked out of the door. I'm not kidding. He said something like, we can. There's no rule against blocking on kickoff returns. I heard him say it, and I went, but he didn't want to say that. Sounded too negative. I think he didn't want to say that to the team.
Yeah. And Charlie Phillips, the big star in that game as well, with 3 interceptions.
Charlie could play, man.
And he had he took one to the house to cap off the 49-0 second half scoring.
One of the best athletes I've ever been around, Charlie Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing game, and that gets you to the Rose Bowl, the 75 Rose Bowl against our new Big Ten Conference foe now, the Ohio State Buckeyes, led by Woody Hayes, and I think there was some payback that needed to be revisited because in '73, Ohio State beat USC in the Rose Bowl. But unlike the Trojans when they win the Rose Bowl, Ohio State didn't win a national championship. So tell us about the feeling going into that game. And you had a little bit of chemistry with your good old high school buddy and college buddy, Pat Haden.
Yep.
That game was phenomenal from the comeback standpoint, down 17-10. And again, you needed somebody to make a play. Walk us through that 38-yard touchdown play in the right corner of the end zone.
About 2 minutes to go in the game, and we're 38-yard line down 7, and there was a timeout, and I was over standing by my dad. And Pat Haden was over there, and he said, "Let's run 64X corner," which is a play action pass where the X, where my position, the X runs a corner, which is the play we ended up running. But I literally said to my dad, I said, "The guy's playing me outside. I can't beat him on the corner." And my dad said, I can't quote him because there's a word in here I'm not allowed to use, but he said, "Run the blanking corner." And so we ran the corner and it worked.
Amazing. And then you needed the 2-point conversion.
Then we had to go 2. There's no question we're going to go for 2. My dad's never going for a tie. We're going for 2. And we ran a little rollout for Pat, and he hit Shelton Diggs, who made a great catch. And then it was amazing, as I'll never forget it. All my friends after the game, we went to the parties, and we're watching the Notre Dame play. Was at Alabama, right? And if they beat Alabama, we're the national champions, and they did. It was pretty amazing.
So again, there's that respect. There's that, big game mentality where it comes down to SC and Notre Dame, and that's why we're here. And we really appreciate you, both of us, joining us here on Trojans Talk on Tap. If you're not subscribed, if you're new to the channel, like I am new on YouTube with my channel, hey, take a moment to like and subscribe, share with your friends. It's not every day during Notre Dame week that you get to hang out with 2 McKays and hear some great stories. Speaking of great stories, Jeff McKay. Jeff, how many times have you heard your dad tell that story about that touchdown or seen the video?
Oh, 7,000 times. It was entertaining, and now I'm to the point I know I was there. He loves that though. He's very proud. But yeah, he was now with YouTube, he'll show that video all the time. So it's pretty hilarious.
I
You're
one of the
talking about how many times, Dad, you've shown the YouTube video of you catching that pass over the past 10 years.
I would say 2,468.
I love it.
And it should have been twice as much.
It's Kurt Gowdy doing the play-by-play, so it's great.
And I have one quick question for you guys. I know we're running out of time, but Jen Cohen's come down, which seems really exciting because I think she's awesome. Was wondering what advice would you, or I'm sure you have given, but any advice you'd share that you think for her to be successful in this role?
The one thing and Jeff's got his own ideas on his front, but the one thing I would say, and I've said this to her, I met her a couple times, because I'm not sure that we were doing this as well, is embrace the Trojan history. Embrace it. It's who we are. It makes us different than a lot of other places. You know, just embrace it. Reach out to the people there are so many people out there that through my experience have supported financially and otherwise this university. Don't ignore them. Reach out to them and embrace them.
Yeah, I mean, adding on, like, she's, certainly doesn't need my advice, but yeah, embracing the past, and like, she's immensely qualified. She's great people skills. I think, in her short time, people already seemingly loving what she's doing. So, and I've been impressed just like how passionate she is. Like, she's not just a talking head. She really, really cares about, especially football. So she's seemingly all in. So I think it was, after how it unfolded with Bone, a great hire. I think she's already hit the ground running. So excited.
Well, let's get into talking about what the stories of tomorrow are going to be told with this game. Gentlemen, if we can preview this year's game, Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on NBC. JK, I understand you're making the trek out to South Bend, and Jeff, you might be joining him out there as well. JK, when are you leaving for South Bend?
I am leaving, I hope, Friday morning.
Friday
Be
morning.
back there, getting on the train and the whole deal up to the stadium, doing that whole deal with my 17-year-old son and my wife.
Let's do this. Let's preview what we think the keys are to USC winning. Maybe give your take on Notre Dame, the team this year, from what you know. And let's start off this time with Jeff. Then we'll go to Tony and JK. You can wrap us up. How's that sound?
Good.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, all right, so I would say my keys, I think we showed against Arizona that we're capable of coming back, but that is not, the start we want to get off to. So I think if we can get on them early and put them in maybe more obvious passing downs, we're going to be golden. They do, their ability to run the ball and eat up a lot of clock is a little worrisome, even though Hartman's obviously a good quarterback, but them running it down our throat worries me. So I think if we can get off to a good start, Caleb's going to do his thing. Notre Dame's defense is really good, but we're going to put up points, and, hopefully Branch is able to give us some big play threat. But I'm going 38-27. Not really sure how I came up with that number, but that sounds about right.
Okay. I think that might have been the score last year or close to it.
It was something like that, right?
Yeah. Tony?
I think the key is going to be owning the line of scrimmage. I think that we have not been doing that very well in the past couple games. And we've been able to survive without it, which is great. But now it's time for us to step up, own the line of scrimmage on offense and on defense. Give Caleb the time he needs. Let us run, let us throw. And on defense, don't let them get 5 yards every time they hand the ball off.
Sound advice. And JK, your thoughts?
My thoughts are simply this: we have a pretty good quarterback. He's pretty good.
Amazing.
I'll be surprised. I really will be surprised if we don't score 40 or more points. So when you score that many points, it's hard to beat you. It's hard to So yeah, do we have to play better on defense? Yes. Do I like our personnel on defense? I do, and I think we have a chance to play better. And again, if Caleb gets us 40, we're tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys all laid it out pretty well. The offensive line has to step up. It seems like it hasn't played as solid in the last 3 games. Hopefully we can get that corrected. But if we own the line of scrimmage and we keep Notre Dame off balance with our offensive attack, both running the ball, which I'd like to see a lot more, and set up Caleb over the top, I think that diversifies our offensive threat, which I don't think Notre Dame in the long-term 60-minute game is going to be able to contain. But one thing that we have to watch out for, I think, is Estime, their running game, where, Tony, you pointed out, he cannot be getting 5 yards or more a clip. And, we've seemed to give up some explosive chunk plays. And Estime, if we don't contain him, he is very capable of breaking a few, and they have a couple good receivers, including freshman Greathouse, who can be a playmaker. So I think we're all waiting for maybe Hartman to maybe play at that level that we've heard him play at Wake Forest. Just haven't seen it yet, but hey, he might. This is a big game. He might rise to the occasion and surprise us all. But very difficult to beat Notre Dame, as you know, JK, in South Bend. So this is going to be a great test for USC.
Totally agree.
So, gentlemen, as we wind down, we really appreciate your time. Why don't you, Jeff, starting with you, why don't you tell us what you're currently doing and anything you'd like to promote? I know Conquest Collective. Maybe you can give us an update on that.
Yeah, man, everything's going really good. We're not, trying to really per se promote anything, but we're excited about the progress we're making. We have some, I think, noteworthy announcements coming in the next couple of weeks on some brand deals. So it's been really fun. I love it. Trying to help out some of the current student athletes and USC, the university has been great. Jen Cohen has been incredibly helpful. So we're just excited. Fans, if they're interested, love to hear from them. But I think everything on the NIL front is going in the right direction.
Okay, so you've had some conversations with Jen Cohen and some background, and she's kind of hitting the ground running, getting familiar with a lot of changes going on with USC in terms of NIL, conference realignment, going to the Big Ten. It was just announced last week, the new schedules for 2023 through 2028. So good to hear that we'll get some updates on what's going on with NIL with the Conquest Collective in terms of NIL in the short term here. JK, what do you kind of inform our viewers, the Trojans? You were, after being an associate athletic director to Pat Haden, I believe, starting in 2010, you left that. What have you been doing since then?
I was there until 2016. Then I was the director of football operations for a league called the Alliance of American Football.
Okay.
With Bill Poley and I ran the football, which is really, really fun and interesting. Ran out of money towards the end of the first year. I am now actually working with Charlie Ebersol, who was involved, started the Alliance of American Football as well. Started a company called Tempus X Machina. It's a sports technology company that is going to, we have a deal with the Pac-12. We have a deal with the NFL. It is a sports technology company that's going to be really, really interesting in what they can show in real time. They've been able to, how there's a delay typically between broadcast
right,
and when you see it, that delay is gone. So It's going to, presents really interesting opportunities for the NFL, for the Pac-12, and for even every single school separately. We'll start using this. So my title is, I just looked at it because I forgot what it was. It's Executive Football Advisor. That's what I am. So what I do is help meet with the football guys and show the coaches and say, here's, wouldn't you like to have this? So it's very, very interesting company, and I think has a chance to be a major player in the sports tech world in the short term.
That's awesome. It's cutting edge. Ebersol, yeah, that is a very familiar last name.
Well, his dad was, it was Dick Ebersol, who started the. I worked with when I was let me flash back to 2001, when I was the general manager of the XFL champion Los Angeles Extreme.
All right,
I remember that.
Just saying,
I recall that. I recall that.
But that was Dick. That was his. Dick Ebersol and NBC were partners in that deal.
He really turned around. I mean, he made NBC Sports, Dick Ebersol.
No question about it.
A titan, yes. Amazing stories, gentlemen. And a very special week, Notre Dame, USC week. And we hope that the Trojans go in there, perform. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, and crew. And hey, this is the start of the back half of this season. Hopefully it's going to continue to be a magical season. The Trojans come out victorious. Again, thank you for your time. In my respect, the first family of USC football, University of Southern California, J.K. McKay, on behalf of Tony Altivar, myself, Jeff, and JK, thank you very much. Enjoy
Thank you.
the trip to South Bend and bring us back a victory. Great to have you on the show.
All right.
Right on.
Great meeting. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey,
And
fight on.
here's hoping it doesn't rain.
Yes. Hope it doesn't rain. Fight on, gentlemen. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Trojans, today's craft beer recommend is from Pizza Port Brewing in San Diego. It is Eggs and Bacon Coffee Porter. Perfect beer for fall weather, especially now with the Trojans moving in to the Big Ten. This could be a beer that you keep you warm in the morning for those 9 a.m. kickoffs. A little bit of information about the beer. The alcohol is evident at 8.0% alcohol, but not overly hot. This is a big porter with a blast of delicious coffee, strong bitterness, and alcohol. The brewers have shown a great use of unique coffee blend and perfect execution. Check this out for your next upgrade to your Trojan tailgate, and fight on.
Go Trojans go. LBC pouring cardinal and gold. The next man up is the next Heisman. Only bleed USC, yes we've been built to win. Catch roses while we ball all across the map. Too strong, fight on, it's Trojan talk on tap.